has a lot of experience, I'm going to say, because I have none, and most people have none, with Windows 11. And when we were talking about this, he has a lot of things that he can talk about. So I think maybe to give him a little direction and to help him out a little bit and focus our discussion, why don't we talk about Windows 11 a little bit, what it means to each of us and why it's important or not important, and the kinds of things that we'd like to learn more about. I can tell you personally that before I understood what was going on with Windows 11, I decided to update my relatively new 4 years old laptop, and Windows 11 said no thank you. So that was the first surprise that I had, and it's because there are some security changes and some other things that are built into Windows 11. For the record, if you're interested in hacking, there are workarounds to install it if you really have to install Windows 11 on your old Apple II, if you want to.
Was the objection that your 4-year-old hardware was not capable?
Yes. Yeah.
And it wasn't just a sizing issue?
No, it wasn't sizing. It was either the CPU was too slow or the security stuff. No, I had the security stuff. I think it was the CPU was too slow.
Well,
it just was the wrong number, the wrong ID.
I'm sorry, Bob, I didn't understand what you said.
Your CPU, probably just the wrong number or the wrong ID.
what does that mean?
There are specific chips that are allowed. There are chips that are not.
Oh, I see.
Well,
And especially in the 7th gen Intel chips.
yeah, I have an i7. And
We have a member in our group here that has a machine similar to yours that's got a fast processor in it. It's over 2.5 gigahertz, and he can't run Windows 11 either because the CPU is not in the list of approved CPUs.
yeah, no, I have a Dell XPS.
So do I.
Dell 15 XPS, and it was the best processor available at the time when I bought it 4 years ago or so, and when I went to install it, they said no thanks. What do you have, Drew?
My computer is a Dell XPS 13, but it's only a year old.
Right. So you have the i9 chip.
I have a 10.
A 10.
Yeah.
Let me give one other,
10th gen.
since you were asking what people were interested in hearing about, let me give you another sort of take on it from my position. I'm always a slow person to bring up new systems. I've always figured that when something comes out, let other people debug it, and I'll bring up 11.2 or 11.3 or whatever. So it's sort of a double question for me that I'd like you to address at some point, and that is, what's the real advantage to making the move sooner, and therefore what do I lose by sticking around with the old version? You don't have to answer it now. I just want that to be part of the discussion.
Right.
And
Well,
Drew,
as I told other people, Windows itself, whether it be version 10 or 11, essentially enables you to do what you want to do with other software programs. And other than booting up your computer successfully so that you can run Zoom, there really is no major reason to upgrade to Windows 11 on an older computer. The only really reason is to maintain security updates and patches for those people who are more concerned about being more regularly updated. Microsoft is going to start slowing down the updates to Windows 10, so they'll become less less. They won't be monthly anymore. They'll go to bi-monthly or quarterly or yearly until the support is out. So Windows 11 being in the stores now, for most consumers, they're not going to really notice that they're running one or the other.
So then I might as well wait for 6 months.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, the user interface is slightly different, correct, in 11?
There's a
In
knock on the
11, they
door.
made some graphical changes to the user interface. They tried to make the desktop less cluttered.
Yeah,
They tried to make the administration a little simpler. They tried to make it a little bit more Mac friendly or Mac lookalike.
That's interesting. I'm curious as to why they would want to do that. Clearly, Windows, well, I shouldn't say clearly. I think Windows is still the market leader in terms of operating system acceptance. Mac OS and the Apple ecostructure probably is a close second, but I think Windows still reigns. And am I incorrect in that?
Well, in terms of the people across the world using Windows and relying on Windows, yes. In the corporate world, Windows, people use Microsoft Office for Windows, and that's really why they use Windows. People could use a Mac if they ran an emulator to run Windows Office. Microsoft has always had an Office for Mac, but it's never been the same as the one on Windows. And that's the real driving force behind the Windows desktop operating system, is the fact that people are addicted to Word and Excel and PowerPoint.
Yes, but those are moving to Office 365 and Microsoft 365. How do you think that might affect things?
Well, it's still a paid software program, still a subscription. Now they're getting homeowners to subscribe.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
point is the 365 suite, if correct me if I'm wrong, but it can run on other operating systems, can't it?
Well, the standard Office 365 is the primary one, is run through Windows. It always will. They have an internet version that you can, Outlook web access, and
But
they
that's
have
more,
they have a version of Word to compete with Google Docs. But it's never going to be what's on Windows.
yeah, more feature limited. Okay.
Oh, so there is a standalone version of 365.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was
it comes
Internet only.
pre-installed on everybody's Windows 11 computer.
Because I
I
decided to
suspect,
go to B. I use LibreOffice, so what I'm in a different realm altogether.
I suspect, though, that most users of programs as complicated as Word and Excel and others use maybe 10% of the functionality, so that when you say that you don't have all that it's got, it may not make any difference, first of all. And secondly, back when I was a kid, you used to get user manuals. And so when a new release came out, you knew what the new functionality is. I'm sure that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of functions in Word and Excel and PowerPoint that have snuck in over the last 20 years that I don't even know exist. So I don't miss them, sort of, because I never knew they were there.
Right? Exactly.
Well, John, the flip side to that is in an office environment,
Yeah.
if you're running for business, Word is Word, and depending upon where you are in an office, you may or may not use all the functionality in Word. There's a lot of sophisticated things in terms of document production and publishing and book and writing books and all this other stuff. I mean, you can create a very sophisticated document in Word, if that's your business and you learn how to do it. Conversely, if you're in finance, you understand macros, Excel, and how to throw things together in a spreadsheet and make it come out and, for a financial report really well. And those are the areas under the covers that they constantly improve that you don't see. The user interface and basic functionality in both of those, you're absolutely right. It's,
Well,
it's
I
80.
suspect that for people like us who are no longer in business and who are mostly using those tools, we use PowerPoint to put together a pitch that we're going to show to this group or maybe another one. And we use Word and Excel just to do simple stuff around the house.
You're exactly right.
And it's fine.
And these are all available on the Mac.
Yeah.
There are
Exactly.
also training issues for large companies that you really don't want to have to train different groups in different things. You really want to have one system for everybody, and there are price issues. The Macintosh computers per se, I believe, are substantially more expensive. So you have training constraints and cost constraints being on an Apple system.
Yeah, training is a
So
big issue.
before we get into a religious argument here about Macs versus PCs, why don't we let Drew go ahead and give his talk?
Harry, you took the words out of my mouth.
What are you, the Spanish Inquisition here?
Sorry about it. I was last week's speaker. I know what it's like to try and get started.
Drew made the mistake of saying he wanted to get a sense of the group. So now that he has,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So that,
Now he's heard all our nonsense.
yeah, he's all that.
Right.
Dr. King, why don't you proceed? And feel free to discuss any areas that you think are relevant or perhaps might engender some discussion.
All right. So should I share my desktop out, everybody?
Feel free.
And everybody else should please mute.
I can copy the screen and share. All right, can everybody see anything?
We see
Yes.
we see stuff that you're doing like on your desktop. You have a PowerShell that's running.
Yep. All right, this is the default wallpaper that you get with Windows 11, or one of them that they give you that rotates around. I've
It
put
doesn't look like Mojave.
I've put a bunch of icons back on my desktop that don't exist. In Windows 11, when it comes out of the package, doesn't have any icons on the desktop except for the trash bin. I've been using my computer, so it's got some stuff on it. But normally, when you get your machine out of the box, the recycling bin is up in the corner, and there's nothing else here. They took the taskbar and they uncluttered it. They moved. This is a separate little utility I'll talk about in a second. The menu button is now over here in this middle, and this taskbar moves and expands. The more applications that you open, the more this shifts over to the left. So if I have more programs open, the start bar will eventually get closer and closer to the edge of the screen. Why they did that, it seems actually kind of like a nice idea. The jury is still out on that for me. Some people immediately go into the settings and flip it back so that it can stick to the left. But you can move it if you want to. But this is the new default. Inside, they've completely gotten rid of live tiles. So those application tiles that rotate around or flip or show you new information are officially all gone. They came in Windows 8 and they're gone in Windows 11. The whole menuing system is different here. This is it. I don't know how many of you who are Windows 11 users know the difference between applications that are in the main menu like this versus the ones that are, as they call them, pinned, like these, where it's listed here as pinned. The applications that you're going to use in Windows 11 are all going to be the ones that are pinned like this, and they require manual pinning. Every time you install a new piece of software.
Drew?
Yep.
Can you ask Windows 11 to make it look like Windows 10? I remember when Windows 10 came out, I think I remember, that you could have the system make it look like Windows 8.
Well, good that you mentioned that. It's a good time. This little icon in the corner here, I don't know if any of you may have heard in the past, when Windows 8 came out, there used to be a program called Classic Shell. Classic Shell made Windows 8 look like Windows 7. This is a newer program called Open Shell, which makes Windows 11 look like Windows 7. and gives you back your traditional start menu. You can go into all programs and scroll down through all of your software programs. If you have Microsoft Office, it shows up in here. It may not work actually properly. It may not work completely properly. This is a third-party utility that just makes things look like the old version of Windows. I don't know if it actually works. But that's, in terms of getting it to look an old-fashioned way, Microsoft's done a lot of work and put a lot of effort into making sure that your Windows looks newer and not look like it did before. Because people have been complaining about it for so many years. But they now include things like TikTok and Disney and a whole bunch of other programs that I've ripped out of here, that are not on the default menu anymore. I've got the tools that I use on here. They got rid of, when you right click on the menu, on the menu bar, you get a nicer menu than you did before. You can go into the event viewer, the device manager, you can look at your network, your disk, you can go into computer management, task manager. You get to a lot more stuff more conveniently than you did in Windows 10. They got rid of a lot of the stuff that they thought that you don't want, and they put here what they think you want. And some people will be happy and some people won't. You can't get to the PowerShell from here anymore. You used to be able to right click over here and do a PowerShell, but you can't anymore. You have to go into the menu and launch it this way. But it's not on the menu by default. And what I did to put them in the menu is you go up here into this new search bar. They took the search bar off the taskbar and they put it up in the middle of the screen here. So that when you are wanting to search for something, instead of using that little window that used to be over here, you click on the hourglass and start typing up here. And if I type in PowerShell, I can now hover over it, right click on it, and say that I want to either run it as administrator, unpin it from the start, or pin it to the taskbar. I have it pinned to the start, which is why you can see it in the menu. And what you need to do is, as you install software on your computer, the new applications will come up in this list here. In the newly added items will show up here first. So it says here NordVPN was recently added. If I want to, I can right click on this and pin it to the start bar so that it will show up at the bottom of the menu. And then if I want to, I can move it around and push it up to the top or put it where I want to put it. But I don't know if that's how intuitive that's going to be to people, that when they see the menu, when they first get their computer, they're going to see all apps is now in the corner, up in the right-hand corner, where it's very inconvenient. And I'm sure they did it on purpose because they want people to learn how to pin things to the menu. And you can go through your menu the first time you get your computer and you have all your software installed, and right click on everything that you want and unpin it or pin it. You see two versions of OneNote here because one of them is the OneNote. The first one is the OneNote that comes with Microsoft Office. It's pre-installed on the computer. And OneNote for Windows 10 is what's available in the Microsoft Store. They didn't come out with a OneNote for Windows 11. They only have OneNote for Windows 10, and it installs on Windows. It comes with Windows 11 Store. There's a let's go over the icons that you're not familiar with over here. This is the new search icon, where you're gonna be using this quite a bit to find everything that you need to find. If you want to go into settings, you can launch your settings. And while I'm here, I'll go into about, and you can look at the processor and the hardware that we have here in this particular machine. This is running an 11th generation Intel. And it's showing that it has the Windows Home, and you're not going to recognize the build number because I'm running the beta version of Windows. I'm running a build that's a lot newer than what's available in the shipping version of Windows.
Excuse me, Drew,
Mhm.
with the chip problems today, where they're not building enough chips, is that expected to cause a decrease in the number of machines that move over to Windows 11? Because I'm guessing that more people are going to have obsolete machines who 4 years ago would just go buy a new one. But today, I don't know. Is that an issue?
I don't know if it's a shipping issue. I'm not up on, I know that I've heard all the stories about the shipping issues that we have in the country and the world, but I don't know enough to speak to that about the availability of chips for computers. But when you go into settings, this is where everything in settings now is where you do all your administrative work now. You go into Bluetooth, network, personalization, accounts, all your settings are now listed in system, with the exception of what's still left in the control panel. There still is a Windows control panel. And Microsoft's working on their way to get rid of this. They want everybody to be using settings exclusively. And they put that on the menu by default in here. It's the little gear icon that's on the menu by default. And this will, over the course of 2022, slowly disappear as they add feature updates into Windows. If you want to, they have in personalization, there used to be, you can go into personalize the taskbar. This is where you can choose what you want to pin, to the taskbar. Automatically, it includes this chat program widgets, the task view, and the search bar. And you can show or hide these items if you want to.
What does the chat do?
Chat is a replacement for Windows Skype. Microsoft, if you don't know, owns Skype. And when the pandemic came out, they saw the transition that people were flocking to Zoom. And nobody was flocking to Skype. And even though Skype had some of the features, it just didn't take off. Chat is, Microsoft has a new product called Teams, and it's included with Microsoft Office 365. There's a version of Teams, like a personal version of Teams included with Office 365 that you can purchase a separate license that can do more. But everybody who subscribes to Office gets a license to use a conferencing program like this.
So maybe I should sell my Zoom stock.
Well, not yet, but Microsoft's trying to make an inroad into it. From what I've learned, most of the people that I know in business still today are choosing to use Zoom over Teams, even though they have Teams available for themselves to use. Some of them have said that Zoom is just more reliable than Teams. I'm on a Teams chat once a month, and I've never had an issue with it that I can complain about. It works just as well as Zoom does, at least on a small scale anyway. So chat is the new Skype, basically, to answer your question.
Drew, this is George Komoda. I had experience with Teams a couple of times, and it was very frustrating. We had a large group, and continually throughout the session, we had issues. And at the end, we changed to Zoom. So I don't know if that has improved or not. This was like about 2 months ago. Just for FYI, I'm still on Zoom because I think Teams is just too new for people to use.
Oh, somebody put up here, Zoom problem was not the threat to Teams. Comment, yeah.
Yeah, the comment is that Teams is not really something new. It's just it used to be the enterprise version that George and his group are complaining about. This is a very much simplified version, is it not?
I've never launched as an administrator either a Zoom or a Teams meeting, so I've never actually administered either one of them, so I can't speak to how they work.
I'm thinking in terms of end users, participants.
From an end user perspective, I don't think there's any difference.
Okay,
You know, I have a person that I join a meeting once a month on. They decided to use Teams, so I installed Teams on my computer just like I installed Zoom on my computer, and they send out a meeting link, an email, just like they do in Zoom, and you click on the link and it goes in.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
You know, the flip side too is that chat is really the guts of chat is Skype, and Skype was around before Zoom was invented. And so, you know, there's a lot of history there in terms of understanding what's going on. Zoom has done what it is and got the market share that it got, you know, for various reasons. But chat is not a brand new, you know, from the ground up application. The guts are there. Microsoft may be having some issues with it because of the way it's scaled, but it's not new.
Yeah, see, I've never gotten it to run.
There's also other legacy programs like Cisco, WebEx, and so on that they're strong still in the corporate world.
Yes, they are. They're more corporate than they are home. But people are going to have, everybody's going to have Teams installed on their computers. You know, as people upgrade to Windows 11, Skype installations are going to go away.
So forgetting George's problem with the current version, with Zoom, you have to pay for it if you want more than, I think it's like 40 minutes.
40 minutes, yes.
Does Teams have a limit for the free version?
I don't know if there is a free version. I don't know if there is a free version. I don't know what its limitations are. Let me put it that way.
But you're saying that Teams is free, that it comes with the operating system, right?
Well, it's going to come pre-installed on the operating system along with Office 365, but you still need to buy a subscription to it.
Ah,
John,
thank you very much.
John, just to clarify what you said, Zoom is free, unlimited for a one-person Zoom meeting. You and somebody else can be on a Zoom call for years and years and years and years. Once you add a third party or anybody else, you are then into your 40-minute time limit. And depending upon the load on the system, they will give you additional time or not.
Yeah, that sounds a lot like what articles are saying this chat is like.
But what that means, Peter, is that you can't depend on getting past the 40, because I've been involved in a number of Zoom meetings where all of a sudden, and I'm not keeping track on my watch, where all of a sudden the meeting comes to an end. And what typically
You're exactly
happens
right.
Then somebody restarts it. You know, they say,
Right.
"Oh, okay, we'll do another 40.
Right. And that's, as I said, you know, you need the corporate version in order to get, you know, whatever it is, and there's prices with that. But the free version will give you one-on-one Zoom, like you and I could have a Zoom call for weeks. And there'll
So
be,
my
you know,
question comes back to Teams then. So with Teams, you say it shows up on the machine when you buy it, or maybe when you install Windows 11. But like I have Office 365, and every year I get a bill for, I don't remember how much. It's something north of 100 to get another year's worth.
Yeah, see, they include Microsoft Teams with the system. I didn't put this in.
Yeah, and it's just, John, it's just like Zoom. I mean, you can get the client, so you can in fact attend a Zoom meeting. And that doesn't cost anything. As long as you don't start a meeting, you're fine. You can be on as many Zoom meetings as an attendee as you want for free.
And this is basically not showing me or giving me any ability to do anything. This is probably just the viewer. They probably just have enough on here to get you started. This is the welcome screen to Zooms. Oh, we've run into an issue. Something went wrong.
Okay, so my opinion is Teams is still pretty broken. But,
Well, recognize that he's running a beta version, so that there may be
well,
something.
yeah.
There may be
Yeah,
something.
Oh, well, let me clarify
But Rich,
that
you
part.
right.
It didn't work out of the box when it was brand new.
Yeah, so Teams has an issue that Zoom doesn't, which is they had typical Microsoft thing, right? They had the enterprise accounts using one instance, and then the free accounts that come with Windows on another instance, and they have slightly different features, and you can't tell which one you're logged into. So there's like a user experience issue switching between them. And they have on the programming side, they're switching platforms because they chose a framework that was really slow, and they regret it, and now are basically backporting all their features to a different platform. So there's a lot of turnover. Basically, they'll figure it out eventually, I hope.
All right, so these are the specifications that are required for your computer. And the one that people have the most problem with is TPM, the Trusted Platform Module. It's only available on computers that are from the last couple of years. And that's one of the reasons why people's computers don't work. Most of the other specifications, it's either the processor typically or this TPM module that's now a requirement for all Windows 11 computers. In the early version, in the beta before they went to shipping, this wasn't a mandatory. This was optional. When they actually sent it to manufacturing, they put this in here as not optional. So one of the things that this handles is logins. Keyboardless logins, such as using a fingerprint scanner or a camera scanner. Microsoft wants people to get away from using passwords to log on to their computers. They'd rather you use biometrics, like facial recognition or a thumbprint or a PIN code, as opposed to a password. And any of you,
Excuse me, I don't understand the PIN code. I have a PIN code now for my desktop. It's a 4-digit numeric, and hardly seems anywhere near as safe as some sort of a more complicated password.
I agree. Your password is stored out on the internet and hackable, even though you're not in your house. And your PIN code, I think, is a little bit more secure from that perspective, the way that the PIN code is stored and handled security-wise. But you're in control in Windows 11 on whether you have a 4-digit PIN code or a 5-digit code or a 7-digit code. I have a 5-digit code on mine, on this particular laptop. You can make it as long as you want, but you don't have to futz with it. But Microsoft is, if I can show you another slide here, the Authenticator app. This is where Microsoft is pushing people. They want people to run this Authenticator app on their cell phone, whether it's an Android phone or an iPhone. They make this available for both. And when you're ready to log in to Microsoft, you click on the Microsoft entry at the top, and it will give you an 8-digit code, a one-time password that's good for 30 seconds. And then it times out. And this is what they want you to log into with your devices going forward. This will be one of your two-factor authentications. In two-factor authentication, they'll want you to use either the video facial recognition and a PIN code, or facial recognition and the Authenticator app. Those are going to be the methods that they want people to log in with going forward.
Drew, do they support 2FA?
2FA?
Two-factor
The
authentication?
the authenticator app.
Oh,
is 2FA.
absolutely, absolutely.
So what, like I use Google Authenticator because that was the first one that I grabbed when I was starting to do this. So what, would that be ample and sufficient for Microsoft, or or I'm restricted to their Authenticator app?
Microsoft is going to have you use their authenticator app.
That's special. That's special. While I'm interrupting you, Drew, let me just ask Charlie one quick question. Charlie, about how long is your talk that you want to do? I want to make sure we have time for you too.
Probably a half an hour.
Okay, good. So Drew, in about 20 minutes or so, if we can try to wrap this up, unless anybody has an objection to that, we'll give Charlie time to do his stuff as well. Fair enough?
Peter,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to suggest that since Charlie's at all the meetings, that we not drop the Windows 11 until we're really pretty certain that we're done.
11 o'clock, we'll decide. Fair enough?
Okay.
All right, so we'll cover. So given that we're going to be limited to 20 minutes from here on in.
No. Let's be clear. You're not limited. Let's do what we have to do. And clearly, your time is limited, so we want to maximize your time with us, Drew. So Charlie, we can postpone. He'll be mad and he'll beat me up when he sees me next time. But other than that, we can deal.
No matter than usual.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. So does anybody have any interest in looking at the networking features of Windows?
Go for it.
All right. So that's a no.
Oh, that was a yes. There were a couple of people that said yes.
Oh, there are a couple. Essentially, with networking, Microsoft used to have in Windows 10, early version 10, a concept called the Windows Home Group. And that was a single password login for everybody in your home. So that if you wanted to share files between one computer and another computer, you would both be members of the same home group and be able to access each other's shares. That didn't turn out to work so well because people wanted a little bit more flexibility than family or nothing. So Microsoft scrapped it's not even in Windows 10 anymore. They've gone back to, I guess, the crustacean period. They took away, there's no way to log on to another computer at all unless you create local logon users now. So if you go into here and you want to, if I want to share my downloads folder out, I can, oops, wait a minute. That's downloads on another computer. That's not my downloads. My downloads is here. If I right click on here, I can show more options. Oh, that's another thing on the right click. On the right click, they took away most of the stuff on the menu and they put it on the secondary menu so that you only have on the first menu the things that you use most every day. Copy, cut, and paste have been moved to their little icons up here now. So I can press the copy icon. And then if I right click, I should be able to, now the clipboard paste option is available. And delete and share and everything will be up here as they become relevant. But if I go into more options and I say give access to, now this is the same as it is in Windows 10 and Windows 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. You go into specific people and you actually have to create a user on the computer. I have a user called Drew King and a user called Sarah. Sarah is just a test user. She doesn't exist. And neither did Jake and Sarah. but they're local users on my computer. And if I want to connect from one computer to another, I need to manually go from computer to computer to computer and create these local accounts that all look the same and have the same user ID and password. And then I can tell everybody that they can log into other machines across the network. This is how you do it. If you say that you want to create a new user, it by default brings you into the control panel, which is where you don't want to, Microsoft doesn't want you. So you're going to say manage another account, and then you can say add a new user, and it brings you into the settings environment where they want you to go into Windows 11. And eventually Microsoft is going to move things around in Windows so that it takes you directly here rather than going to the control panel first. But that's just a flaw in the upgrade process of how the creation of new users are done.
So Drew, do they still have domain level security so you can have a domain server and administer all your accounts from there?
There are two versions of Windows 11. One of them is Windows 11 Home, and the other one is Windows 11 Pro. And Windows 11 Pro handles all of the domain authentication. That's the one that people will use at work. And then they have the home version, which does everything except for connecting to domain controllers.
Okay, because it used to be that both versions were domain enabled if you had a domain server, and you're saying they took it away or it's harder to get to.
Well, Windows 10 Home doesn't connect to domains either.
So Drew, if I understand what you just said, there is no real advantage for most people outside of a corporate environment to use Windows Pro, the 11 Pro, correct?
Correct. There's the only options that are Windows 11 versus 10. What are the differences? It's a perfect topic change.
Oh, excuse me, before we go off the networking topic, in Windows 11, can you still have a network share that?
Yes,
that
you
seen
can
on your
still,
network?
you can still in Windows, let me get out of here. So this is the area where I would create a new user. You can add another user and add a local user. So that's how that works. And then you would, once you created that user, you would be in this sharing option here. Give access to specific people. And then what you would do is, where do you go into, I'm losing my focus here for a second. If you go into sharing and then advanced sharing, you can say that you want to share it as the word downloads, for example. And I can say add a new share if I want to change the share name. So this works just as it did in Windows 10.
Drew,
Mhm.
a question. Most of us have more than one computer. And if you have Windows 11, say, on the new computer you just purchased, how do you network so that you can see stuff on the other computers?
Well, I have on my network, I have these two devices. This tablet computer here is another computer on my network, another Windows computer. And this one is actually the USB drive attached to my router, shared out as a Microsoft share. Any other computers, if I had other computers here, they would show up in my network. This is, they still have the concept of work groups. So all Windows 11 computers, when they're new, are part of the work group, just like they were in Windows 10 and 7 and so forth. That hasn't changed.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can still do everything the old fashioned way. In fact, that's the only way now. Now let me see if my phone is connected or not. And then we'll show you, because I want to try and cover as many topics as I can. And then if you want to have a more detailed meeting, we can have a more in-depth, nuts and bolts meeting if you want. But if I go to, is another form of sharing is what they call nearby sharing, which is what some of you may choose to do in the moment. Is if I want to, if I download a file, and in this case, I'll just pick the first one that's here, Win to USB free. And if I right click on it, I can click on this icon here called share. And there's a thing called nearby share. And nearby share, this desktop computer shows up here. It's actually a dummy computer, a virtual machine. And I can transfer files to another computer by simply right-clicking, clicking on share. And then nearby share finds over Bluetooth any nearby machines that are connected on Bluetooth or have Bluetooth sharing enabled. And you can say that you want it to be everybody or only your devices. And my devices, it's gone. This desktop shows up again. Okay, good. And if I were to click on here, it would take that file and send it to the designated folder on the other machine. So in the downloads folder on the other computer would appear that file. You don't want to do it with huge files because it's over Bluetooth, not over Wi-Fi.
Drew, that's for Windows machines over Bluetooth. You can't nearby. You can't use Bluetooth to go to a iOS or a Mac OS machine.
Mac computers have their own local sharing protocol, and Microsoft has its own local sharing protocol. Android cell phones have a third local sharing wireless Bluetooth protocol. So if you have an iPhone, you can send a file over Bluetooth to another iPhone, but to no one else. And the same thing for Windows, and the same thing for Android. Android has a thing called nearby share that uses Bluetooth almost with the same wording, only theirs only works from Android to Android, not Android to Windows. I've tried.
All right, everybody stays within their own little infrastructure.
Yes, they do. And if I were to, I just want to go in here and see if my cell phone is even in the list. Microsoft has a feature called Your Phone, and I have two computers turned on. So I've got more than one connection that this computer, my phone, can connect up to. And I unfortunately didn't try this out before I woke up this morning. But so I apologize for this not coming up real quick.
What kind of phone do you have?
I have a Samsung Galaxy S21.
Okay.
And it's showing up as being offline right now because I have it paired with more than one computer. And I didn't set this up in advance. If I had set this up in advance, I would be able to see and respond to text messages. So let's say you're sitting at your desk and somebody sends you a text message. You can use your computer keyboard to reply to them on your cell phone. You can look at your photos. You can run Android apps. Unfortunately, I can't do that here because I don't want to take the time to troubleshoot this right now. Another way of running Android apps on your computer is the new way, is to run what they call the Windows subsystem for Android. And this creates its own Windows Android file system architecture. And I can show you in here. This has, I don't know if any of you have heard of BlueStacks. BlueStacks is an emulator.
Excuse me a second. Does this then run in parallel to the regular operating system so you can bounce back and forth?
This lets you run applications. Let me just show you. Let me show you the end result. The end result is I have the Google Play App Store on my computer, and I can launch the App Store, and it's going to launch the Windows subsystem for Android because I only have an 8 gig computer, and you can tell the Windows subsystem to only run when you run an Android app for the first time. So this is the first time this morning that I'm running an Android app. And so it took a little longer to get loaded. But this is the Google Play Store running on Windows. And you can install any application that you want that you would load on your cell phone or your Android tablet. And for example, why some people might say, well, why would you want to do that? I can run my Gmail program and access all of my email using a full screen Gmail app. And these are here's an email from you guys. And this is the Gmail app that I would run on my cell phone. So you don't have to learn how to use 2 different email programs. You can use the same Gmail program on your computer that you use on your phone. And you can, I also do a fair amount of tweeting. So I have Twitter on my main computer. I don't have it on this one. This is a dummy computer for me, a play machine. Oh, I do have Twitter on here. So Twitter is this is also an Android app running on Windows. And so you can, I don't know how easy it is to tell how nice it is to have applications. Microsoft is doing this in a way to compete with the Chromebooks, I think. Chromebooks can run very efficiently for long battery life, and they can run Android apps. And Microsoft is trying to go head to head and beat off Google's Chromebooks. And that's one of the reasons why they app-enabled Windows, is they want to gain some of that Chromebook market share.
Yeah, and also the Microsoft's own store has a lot of apps in it, but for some reason people don't really seem to like it as much as the Android apps.
No, they don't. It's a terrible app store. So in Windows 11, the shipping version was supposed to include the Windows Android architecture, only it didn't make it into the release. So it's something that's going to come out. It's in the beta, which is why this is working. And it will be out at some point in 2022. You'll be able to run Android apps on your Windows 11 computer.
So Drew, do they have an ARM instruction set emulator deep down in there? Or do they virtualize at a different level?
They're not using a virtualization technology. They're using a newer technology. How to create Windows 11, Windows to go. Oh, here it is. How Android apps work on Windows 11. What it uses is, it's not an emulator like BlueStacks is. It's not a virtual machine. What it's using is a technology called, if I can find it in here. If I can't, I'll move on real quickly. Yeah, I can't find it right now, unless it's in here. Yeah, I can't, oh, here it is. Android apps in Windows 11 are not running on an emulator. They're running with this Intel Bridge technology, a runtime post compiler, whatever that is, to natively run applications on Windows. So this is the technology that they're using to enable Android apps to run on top of Windows. So it's not like you're running VMware Workstation or VirtualBox or any virtualization software programs to run Android apps on Windows. You're running them in this runtime post compiler environment.
Yeah, so it's similar to, I think in Java for years, there's a Java instruction set that comes down, and at runtime, they expand it to native code and run that. If, after it's been run a few times. Here, it sounds like they're doing it all the time. So they're converting it to native on the fly and then running that.
So that's basically what they're doing there. And it gives you the flexibility of installing any one of the thousands of applications that are available. One of the ones that I run is LandDrive, Samba server and client. I run this on my Android cell phone so that I can get back and forth between Windows computers. And now you can run this on Windows, and you can get between the Windows subsystem and your Android subsystem. And I won't go into that now because we're getting low on time. And that's more in depth than people probably want to hear about.
Let me repeat, don't let the clock bother you. Charlie's really flexible. Even though he looks like an ogre, he's not.
Okay. Another thing that Microsoft has put into Windows 11 is they purchased a company. I don't know if any of you have heard of a company called Nuance. Nuance is now owned by Microsoft. They quietly purchased it's a voice recognition company.
Yeah,
There
Nuance,
used to be
used to have another name, and they had that
it used
gorgeous,
to be Dragon Naturally Speaking.
Well, that was
they
the
had that
original.
beautiful castle.
Yeah,
Yes.
Nuance bought Dragon Naturally Speaking, and then
Right,
they
and
Nuance after.
Microsoft bought Nuance.
Yeah,
And now some of that Nuance technology has found its way into Windows 11. So if you open up a chat session with somebody and you don't want to type on your keyboard, let's say you're doing tech support help and you're not a touch typist like I'm not, you can open up, if I were to open up something simple like Notepad, I could press the menu button and the letter H, and it brings up an internet-enabled voice recognition. This is actually sending my voice out to Microsoft, converting it into words, and then typing it out on the computer.
Will that have all the capabilities of the current Dragon system?
It won't
Which
have
I use all
of
the time.
features, but what I can do for you is I can send Steve or somebody a couple of hyperlinks after the meeting, and you can these are all of the common commands that Microsoft has put into Windows 11. So you can turn listening mode on and off with your voice, select words within documents, select and delete specific words. So yeah, it's gotten a lot more intricate, a lot more friendly than it has in the past. But I'm a Dragon Naturally Speaking customer, and I'm sticking with Dragon Naturally Speaking for when I can, because it's not supported in Windows 11 yet.
And
I
also,
I use Dragon system all the
Dragon
time
is-
myself.
Dragon processes locally. I don't think it sends it up to the cloud.
Correct.
Right. Dragon processes it locally. You're correct.
And that's the big difference. That's what you're seeing here, is that they're doing the thing that Amazon does with Alexa and other apps do, is they record the voice after a short period of time, send it up to the cloud, it comes back as bits and bytes, and then gets executed.
Yes. That's how Windows 11 has a hybrid of that. They have some of the traditional stuff in there still, and they have this new cloud-based service as well.
God forbid you're on a slow internet.
Well, also, there's only so much time that Dragon will spend figuring something out. It's gotten better over the years. Then it just moves on with his best choice. Not sure they can do that as fast over the internet.
Well,
Okay.
Dragon was used, I worked for Nuance, so Dragon was mostly medical, as you know, Jerry. And
Yeah,
so therefore, time was critical because as you're operating and you want to do surgical notes, you can't wait while the guy bleeds out to correct the.
well, you don't
Dragon's-
do your note. Well, you don't do your note while you're doing the operation. But I
I
did my
understand.
office on Dragon, and it was wonderful.
It helps a lot.
The medical version has gone away now. They have the professional version, the home version, and the legal version.
Well, the medical version wasn't any good. It was a mile wide and an inch deep. I'm a specialist, a pulmonologist, and it just has a few pulmonary words. It has a few orthopedic words and a few dermatology words, but that didn't really help me. I had to create my own dictionary.
Right. And in 2022, there's no medical version anymore. It's the legal version. It's the only specialty version that they have now.
A
But
question.
nuance is heavy into the medical environment.
Right, they are.
If you go into your doctor's office and they're using a professional grade voice recognition system to do your office
What?
notes, typically they're using a nuance system.
Yes.
Drew,
Yes.
is this capability available on Microsoft 10?
Yes, it is available. It's available on Windows 10. It's been improved in Windows 11. But yes, you can do voice typing in Windows 10.
Okay.
You
And
can
you have
hold down the
or
menu
whatever
key and
that's
press
called,
the
right?
letter H. I don't know what the letter H means to voice recognition, but it's,
Rather than discussing that in detail now, I would suggest that we put in a 15 to 20-minute talk on that into a potpourri using voice for 10.
okay.
Sounds good.
And maybe Jerry Slade would be willing to do that since he is a heavy user.
And let's see. Oh, years and years ago, I want to make sure that everybody knows this. Years and years ago, Microsoft used to ship Windows with a media, and they don't do that anymore. And nobody gives it a second thought anymore because computers have gotten more reliable. There is a feature in Windows called the recovery drive. And I would strongly recommend that each of you with a Windows 10 computer or Windows 11 computer take a flash drive. Needs to be 32 gigabytes minimum, but not bigger, or it can be bigger, to create a recovery drive. And what this does is it creates a USB bootable flash drive for Windows 11 and for Windows 10. And you can back up your system files to the recovery drive. And if you have a hard drive crash or your computer doesn't boot for any reason, you can pop this into your USB drive and recover your computer. In fact, you can completely reinstall Windows from that and bring it back your user license as well. So if your computer were to crash now, and you needed to get it back with a new hard drive, you're out of luck. You don't have your license code, your sticker with your serial number on it anymore. You don't have a Windows ID anymore. You just have your computer in a box with no documentation, no disks, no CDs, no nothing. You have to go out and take your own USB flash drive and create this recovery disk. And then
Can you create that on I have a 4 terabyte backup drive. Can I do that on that drive?
it's going to format the disk and make it into a recovery disk.
Oh, so you can't use it as an addition.
For what it's worth, Micro Center sells a 32 gigabit drive for about $6.
Yeah, you don't have to spend a lot of money on a drive to get. It's under $10.
Maybe I can get a discount.
How to create this drive?
You could just Google it, and it says, and it'll bring you right to the place where they let you create it. But go ahead, Drew.
Yeah, you just type in the word recovery. in the search box, and then it'll bring up the media creator. That's really all there is to it. And this is just a tip. It's Windows 10 and Windows 11. If you have, I would recommend everybody get a flash drive and create a recovery disk for yourself. Which brings me to the next interesting topic. If any of you want to be able to run Windows 11, you can do so running it off of the flash drive. And there is a software program. There's many software programs. This is one that I use that creates either an image or a CD-ROM to USB is just making the installation disk go from a CD to USB. The image to USB and the physical to USB takes an actual Windows installation and puts it on the flash drive so that you can boot off the flash drive. And if you've cloned your existing Windows machine to the flash drive, you can actually boot off the flash drive and it'll take you into what looks like your own version of Windows with your own license and all of your software and all of your data. If you get a 128 gig flash drive or a 256 gig flash drive, you can replicate your entire computer onto the flash drive. And then if your computer crashes or you want to travel someplace and bring your computer with you, you have it on a little thumb drive. You run this little utility, Win to USB, and you follow the little prompts that it gives you, and you pick, an image file, and you can take the Windows 11 image file. If I have it, I don't have it handy, so I'll use the Windows 10 one.
But does this mean that you can have your licensed computer on a number of different machines at the same time?
Well, you're not going to have it running licensed legally on a bunch of machines at the same time. No.
I mean,
This,
I didn't mean would it be legal.
They,
I just
they
wondered if
created,
it could be
they
done.
created this initially. Windows to Go was created initially for the enterprise version of Windows and the education version of Windows, which neither one of them have individual computer licensing. So you could put Windows on a flash drive and not worry about the license. If you're using this just for Windows 11 for doing an installation, you can install Windows 11 onto a flash drive. And if I go into my downloads folder is where I have Windows 11. This is the Windows 11. It's a 5 gigabyte install file, 5.5 gigabytes. So it doesn't fit on a CD anymore or a DVD anymore. So you have to use a USB to boot into it. And if I were to choose this, I can say I want to install Windows 11 Pro or Home or whatever. And it will ask me for a flash drive, and I'll give it a flash drive. It'll ask me how I want to format it, and I'll tell it that I want to use a master boot record for BIOS and EUFI. And if I were to, or in this case, it's the free version, so I have to use this one. If I were to say yes, it would format my drive and start installing Windows. And then when I booted my computer, it would do a fresh install of Windows so that it would take you through just as if you had bought a new computer. You'll create your login account, you'll install your software, and it'll be as if it was a regular computer. And you can use it, Windows 11, that way for 60 days before the trial period expires. So this is a way that for under $10, you can install Windows 11 and play with it for yourself without having to compromise your own computer.
Okay, excuse me, you said under $10 because you're thinking of a 32 gig drive, but wouldn't you really want to put everything, all your data out on there also? And now you're back to what I think Peter said earlier, where maybe you want a 256 or something.
Well, you can, if you're going to clone your drive, I would use a 128 or a 256. And most everybody is storing their files in the cloud now. So if you boot off the flash drive your My Documents folder, I don't know if all of you know this, but your My Documents folder is out on the internet already. C:\users, My Documents is no longer locally on the computer anymore. It's up on Microsoft OneDrive. And what you're seeing on your local computer is a copy. So if you have Windows running on your flash drive, you can access all your documents regardless. So all you really need is Windows and your apps.
So Drew, that begs an interesting question. If I look at the properties of my hard drive, the drive I have in my machine, and I look at the properties of the folder, it tells me that My Documents is taking up, hundreds of gigabytes, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not really?
Well, it's using space on both your computer and on OneDrive, the cloud server. If you go into Microsoft Cloud Services, and let me minimize this guy. If I go into settings and settings again, files on demand, I have it set for saving space and download files as you use them. So I have any files I have in my documents folder automatically are saved up to the cloud, but they're also, if I were to fill up my drive, they're going to start backing up into the cloud only. And I can actually tell a file to, how can I tell a file? Well, in this environment, I can't demo this right now, but all of your document folders are in Microsoft OneDrive, and any computer that you log on to with your own Microsoft user ID and password, you'll have access to your Microsoft OneDrive files. So if you have Windows on your flash drive and you take it home with you and you pop it into, computer B that's sitting in your living room, you'll have your work computer, at your desk at home, and you can type and do what you want and go into the office the next morning. You just have to make sure you have a license for it. And if you clone your hard drive, it'll clone the license inside Windows. So if you use the physical to USB, it'll take your existing Windows license and put it on the flash drive. And as long as you're the only one using it, and it's just you booting up one and not turning it into two separate computers, maybe you're not breaking the license. I don't know.
So Drew, when I log into my machine, I never log in to Microsoft, my Microsoft account, as far as I know. Does that mean that I am not doing anything in the cloud and it's all local?
You can, in Windows 10, create a local user account. It depends on how your Windows was set up in the first place. You may be backing up your files to the cloud. You may not be, on a 4-year-old computer. You'd have to check your OneDrive settings.
Yeah, because I use Carbonite as a backup tool, so I know that the stuff's being backed up to the cloud. But for what you were saying with My Documents, I don't know how it's being backed up. Because I don't knowingly log into anything Microsoft.
Yeah,
Right.
the
Now,
default setup for Windows Home since Windows 10 has been to set it up with a Microsoft Cloud account. That works exactly as Drew is saying.
Now in Windows 11, it's not optional anymore. It's mandatory. So when you're installing Windows 11 for the first time, when you bring the computer home for the first time, it's going to walk you through creating a Microsoft account, whether you want one or don't.
Well, actually, there's a workaround for that, but we'll skip that.
Oh, okay. There is. The public, let's just say the published word in Windows 11 out of the box without using a third-party workaround, you have to have a Microsoft account.
So does that mean, Drew,
Yes.
does that mean that you are going to be paying for the space you're using on OneDrive?
They give you 5 gigabytes of free space before they start charging you for disk storage.
Yeah, and I suspect that since I'm not being charged anything, I'm not using it because I have my documents is more than 5 gigabytes.
Right. And it's $1.99 a month for 100 gigabytes. And if you are a Microsoft Office subscriber, which is I think $7 or $8, $9 a month, they give you a terabyte of storage. So you don't have to worry about it at all. Now, other than voice
Just a
typing,
quick, Drew, just a quick follow-up on that.
Mhm.
If so, I'm using Microsoft OneDrive, and I decide that I want to go someplace, and I'm taking a flight, and I'm not hooked up to the internet, and I want to work on my machine and do some work on some documents that are in my documents.
Mhm.
I have copies of the last time I touched any of those documents are on my machine. So I have a local copy no matter what, correct?
You
or
do,
not?
yes. In the newer versions of Windows and Windows 10, where you have created a Microsoft account, your files are in Windows 10. They're located in both places, on your computer and in the cloud. And then in Windows 11, what it's going to do is it's going to, as it fills up, as your computer hard drive fills up, it may start moving things to the cloud and deleting them from your hard drive and giving you a pointer to it, essentially. So it'll still show up in your drive list as a file, only it won't be on your computer. When you click on it, it'll in that moment stream it down from the cloud and put it on your hard drive again.
Drew, a question. When you say a file you download, usually you say save as or save. By default, it goes to OneDrive. But if you want to bypass the OneDrive and save it locally, does OneDrive then update it? Or do
you can store files outside the OneDrive file system on your computer, and then they'll be ignored by the OneDrive system.
Okay, so essentially OneDrive and your local My Documents are not necessarily the same.
They're a mirror image of each other. They should be.
Well, no, but I mean,
Excuse me,
my
I'm on
question,
Windows 10 and my documents and OneDrive are totally different. And I've had all sorts of problems with OneDrive, but I find that some files go to one place and some to the other, and I've got to be very careful where I place them.
that's
And
my
in
question. You know, that's my question because I downloaded a number of photos onto my local computer. I mean, my computer file, and they don't exist in OneDrive. So if I go to My Documents on OneDrive and go to My Documents on my computer, they're not the same.
And
Correct.
correct. In Windows 11, it will be more likely that it'll work the way that it's intended to work and not work the way that it's poorly working for you now. They've fixed that up a little bit in Windows 11. So now that they make it mandatory, when you set up your Windows 11 machine for the first time, if you're doing it just out of the box, it will set up your My Documents folder will be located out on the OneDrive, and it'll match, perfectly. When you log into a second computer with your Microsoft account, it will, on a new computer, it'll ask you during the install if you want to have the second computer be its own computer with its own OneDrive account, or whether you want it to be a replica of your other computer's OneDrive account. And if you tell it that you want it to be the same account, it'll keep your documents folders in sync with each other. And so in Windows 11, with the mandatory OneDrive account, they're clearing up some of the mismatch between documents that are stored on C:users Drew versus OneDrive Drew. And does anybody else have any other questions? Because I'm going to probably wrap up now, unless anybody has any other topics they want to cover.
Well, I just wanted to get your impression. It looks to me like Windows 11 is going to be a work in progress for quite some time. And if you use a function occasionally and then they change it and they keep changing it, it can get very confusing. Am I correct?
Well, in Windows 11, they're trying to they tried to corral everything and make it better. I don't know if they have. It'll be time will tell if they've accomplished their goal or not.
Question, you said you need a, what was it, 32 gigabyte drive for recovery disk. I
Yes.
just made a recovery disk while we've been talking, and it's only taken 6 gigabytes. I'm on Windows 10.
You're on Windows 10?
Yeah.
And is it finished yet?
Yeah, said it was.
Huh. I'm surprised that it was. Did you tell it to the optional? Did you click the checkbox to back up your system files?
I don't know. I might
You
not.
probably didn't.
So I should redo this.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
If you check the box, it's an optional checkbox.
Yeah, I saw 1 or 2 optional checkboxes.
Right. And one of them was to back up your system files.
Okay, and I might
And if
not have
you-
done that.
And that's not checked by default.
Okay,
So
thank you.
if you check that, it will take up the full 32 gigs.
Okay, thanks.
But without getting
I
into
just had
any,
a quick question.
sure.
Are the files not in my data files, not in my documents? Are they backed up to the recovery disk?
No, the recovery disk is strictly your operating system file system. It's not going to be your applications or your data.
Sorry.
So Bob, to put it in different terms, it means if you can't boot your computer, but your hard disk or hard drive is still accessible, you can boot from the USB or this recovery stick, and then access files on the hard drive as if it was an external drive, but you cannot boot from it.
Well, the recovery drive lets you do some it has some troubleshooting features in it that will help you to try and recover from a non-bootable computer. And so it has a built-in troubleshooting feature. And if the event that it can't fix the computer and get it to boot properly, it gives you the option to reload Windows. And if you create that flash drive, it will, with the system files on there, it will reinstall Windows onto the computer, and you can tell it to preserve all of your data files. You'll still have to reinstall applications, but you'll have all your data.
So going full circle, it seems like it is getting very Apple-like. Microsoft has had the recovery disk and that sort of stuff built into their, I'm sorry, Apple has had that recovery disk built into the disk utilities portion of their ecosystem for a while.
Okay, so Microsoft's catching up.
Drew, should that be NTFS on the USB drive?
No,
I don't think it. I don't ever pick. I can't recall picking whether it was one or the other.
Well, they always come as either FAT or exFAT, but
Exfat.
Well,
NTFS,
they come from the factory as FAT32.
right, or
But
exFAT.
you don't have to worry about choosing FAT or NTFS because you're just going to run that utility and it's going to do it for you.
Hmm.
It's going to
But
format
Jerry-
it's going to format that drive however it's going to do it, and then put the system files on it.
I see.
if you ever run into a problem where you're not getting, I get a large file that won't go to a USB, which I ran into recently. If you Google that particular problem, I think exFAT lets you format it in a way that you can get the full use of the drive. Because I had like a 15 gig file that I wanted to put on a 32 gig stick, and it wouldn't let me. It said there wasn't enough room.
Right.
And so we formatted it using the other technique, and it
Yeah.
worked fine. I got the full 32 gig.
Right. If you use NTFS, you can FAT32 is limited to 4 gigabyte files.
Right.
But so NTFS is also a bit faster, at least in figuring out what's on the drive. It seems to me.
It is.
Yeah, I sort of get excited about Windows 11, but the question is, for people who have Windows 10, and it's a new computer, but it doesn't accept yet for an update, is it worthwhile to fight hard to get 11 or stay with 10?
Well, theoretically, Microsoft is going to be providing security updates and patches and fixes for another few years for Windows 10. So if your computer is a little older, I don't see why there's a reason to force feed Windows 11.
Okay.
A few years ago, we had a series of talks about whether or not one should move from 8 to 10. And it's very reminiscent. And eventually we reached a point where 8 was going to be disappearing, or maybe not disappearing, but there wouldn't be releases. And everybody moved over to 10. And I suspect that as we watch this group, there will be initial groups of folk who just always want to be on the newest thing. And many of the rest of us may be patient.
Well, everybody that's buying a new computer for Christmas this year is getting Windows 11, unless you buy something that's been in inventory for a little while.
And one of the design goals on 10 was to make it easier to come forward from the other prior versions. And that's apparently not a design goal for 11. So you're better waiting to just buy the thing pre-installed on a new machine.
Well,
most cases.
Windows 7 was a good release. Then they came out with that Vista, which was Windows XP, then went to Vista. And Vista was a nightmare. And then Windows 7 came out and fixed it. Then Windows 8 was kind of a nightmare, and Windows 10 fixed it. Windows 11 doesn't need to be fixed in that manner. It's more of a polish to Windows 10 than it is anything else. The biggest problem is that people are going to not be able to upgrade, which it's not a terrible problem. If your computer is more than a couple of years old, have you guys seen anything in here that's critical that you absolutely say that you've got to run out and upgrade to Windows 11?
Yeah, the fan is breaking on my laptop. I need a new laptop. That's the problem.
Now, the other thing is they have Android compatibility mode, but they don't have it for iPhone yet. And a lot of the members have iPhones.
No, they're not going to have it for the iPhone. They're only going to have it for Android.
It won't be in anybody's lifetime on this screen where Apple and Microsoft are going to talk.
No, I don't think so.
Well, unless somebody's daughter marries a son from the other company. That's the way they solved the old days.
That's going back to interlocking families in Europe where, everybody's a Habsburg. Drew, thanks again so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate
you.
your-
Thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Your knowledge and time.
You're welcome.
Thank you.